Now I have the privilege of introducing you to our keynote moderator, a man whose name and face have become synonymous with cloud innovation. Peter Coffey is the Vice President and Head of Platform Research at Salesforce.com. He joined Salesforce in 2007 after 19 years as a columnist and lab analyst for the enterprise IT journals PC Tech Journal, PC Week, and eWeek. He works with IT professionals and independent developers to build the global community using cloud application platforms, including Salesforce.com's Force.com and Heroku. Mr. Coffey has 30 years' experience in guiding adoption of new technologies and practices as a developer, consultant, educator, author, and lecturer, with particular emphasis on software development and information security disciplines. He has served as a keynote speaker, moderator and workshop leader at industry events and academic meetings throughout the Americas, the Asia-Pacific region, India, and Western Europe, and we are truly honored to have him here with us today. Please help me welcome Peter Coffey.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Well, with that build-up, I have a healthy respect for my limited role today. I am the pickle spear next to your hamburger. The real meat of the program will be delivered by others, but I do have the distinct privilege of being allowed to bookend the session today with some perspectives that I think will kind of be a good frame for what you're about to see. When I want to really develop a sense of urgency among people who think, well, some of the things that you're talking about are undoubtedly going to be important and we'll wait to see how they turn out before we get on board, I use this one chart. It gets more head nodding from CIOs in particular than any other, which is this. Customers used to follow the rules. A prospect was the province of marketing. They would send a brochure, and that would own the initial understanding of what you are. And then when someone was ready to become a buyer, well, they would be interacting with your sales team at that point. And there would be terms and conditions on the table. There'd be some negotiation going on. And once someone has moved past being a buyer to become an actual customer, well, now they're the domain of your support organization. And if they have an issue with you, they get out the manual and find out what the toll-free number is and call. And if you promise to get back the next day, wow, that's really crisp response. The customers are no longer following these rules. Your prospects don't come to your website. Website traffic on the top 100 corporations in this country is actually shrinking, not as a share of interaction. Absolute number of page visits are going down. Because when people want to go out and discover a product or a brand, they go to social media and other sites. And they will talk to they will really break the rules. They will talk to your existing customers about whether they should become a new customer. Buyers are out there on LinkedIn. They're saying, oh, they're offering you that incentive? Well, I'm going to be sure to talk to my guy about that. It's no longer possible to have these little soda straw, narrow conversations. It's as if all your customers and buyers are in the room together, and you have to negotiate with them all as a group. And of course, your customers who are even slightly disappointed in you for an hour or two can tell the whole world how disappointed they are and how much they're looking forward to seeing if you can make good. At that point, that's damage control for you. All you can do is try to limit how much harm they'll do to your brand. So the result of all of this is that we need new organizations and processes in our companies. We need a culture in which everyone at the edge of the company has the ability to call on whatever resources are required to move the deal forward or to address the customer dissatisfaction. This is no longer a conversation about taking siloed functions and making them better, faster, and cheaper. This has to be a conversation about getting everybody in the company and in the partner ecosystem of the company on board with the idea of delighting the customer. One of the lesser-known Peter Drucker quotations is that the only legitimate function of a business is the creation of a customer. If you can do something for shareholder value along the way, fine. But you try to move the needle of shareholder value, it's like reaching out and moving the needle of your speedometer and wondering why the car is not going faster. It's an indicator. The driver is, are you creating customers? Now, part of this is that the products are connected. Mark Benioff was at Consumer Electronics Show recently, and he set himself up for the question, why am I here? And he said, because as I wander around the floor here at CES, I see any number of products that are set up to talk to my iPhone, camera will send the pictures to your iPhone so you can tweet them out. Connected products, sure. He says, where's the like button on the product? Where's the facility for allowing your company to be connected to the customer as well as the iPhone is connected to the product? What are you doing to make it easy for someone who's in the moment of delight, or for that matter, in the moment of disappointment, to be actively engaged with you in the process of product improvement that makes them an invested partner with you? It's absolutely a doable thing. And in particular, I highlighted that phrase in red from a Forbes piece. This is one of the ways that you defy commoditization of products. When you wrap services around them, the camera that is part of my life has an advantage over the camera that merely takes pictures. And so competition on spec sheet, the worst product you can buy in many spaces today would have been considered professional grade stuff only 10 or 15 years ago. But if you can wrap value-adding, lifestyle-enhancing services around that function, now you've got a degree of, call it stickiness with the customer, that would otherwise be quite difficult to achieve. And so this conversation about cloud that we were having a few years ago, that's really talking about the canvas and forgetting that the point is to paint a picture on that canvas. The cloud's just the canvas. The cloud's just the medium of what's actually valuable, which is creating and deriving value from connection. It includes connecting machines. Many of us are familiar with Onstar, but many of us probably think of Onstar as a blue button on the rearview mirror that lets the driver talk to an operator. Almost half the traffic, and by now probably slightly more than half the traffic, because that number is a few months old, most of the traffic now on Onstar is machine to machine, because the new cars that are being built by GM are platforms. A Chevy Volt doesn't just tell OnStar if the airbag deploys, it can tell OnStar if the gas cap is open. You're seeing some of the new vehicles from GM, from Ford, certainly from Tesla, being positioned primarily as network nodes that happen to include a transportation function. If you look at a pickup truck today, it's being marketed primarily for its ability to be a contractor's mobile office, which also, by the way, has a cargo bed in back. But the Wi-Fi hotspot capability and mobile office facilities are really what's differentiating these products in their markets. And this applies not only in the consumer space, but in the industrial space. General Electric has been doing these wonderful TV ads, the Brilliant Machines campaign, to talk about the degree to which connectivity combined with intelligent processing of data is moving the needle of profitability on everything from locomotives to wind turbines and jet engines. Jeff Immelt talks about 1% problems. If you've got an industry with a 5% profit margin and you can cut a core cost by 1%, you've just improved profitability by 20%. So the leverage of these opportunities is immense. And of course, connecting people. Redefining experiences by adding an aspect of human connection to them. ASICs at a marathon run put RFID tags on people's shoes so that when they ran past a particular point on the course, a personal video greeting would come up on the giant screen from friends or family. They said, people later said, this completely changed my definition of what it means to run in a marathon. I'm not out there just, me and myself challenging the clock now. I'm part of my community all the time. The opportunity to not merely improve what you sell, but fundamentally to transform people's concept of what they're buying. That's real, that's here, and companies are doing it as we speak. So in this world, everyone who works for you is your brand. The number of minutes that an impeccably groomed sales rep may be facing a customer to sell a dishwasher or a refrigerator is insignificant compared to the amount of time that a service rep is going to be in their home over the next 5 or 10 years doing routine maintenance on that thing. Why should that service rep be merely someone who shows up and turns a screwdriver and leaves? They should be equipped to have a conversation about new features, about new capabilities of the product. And in the other direction, customers want to engage in product development, but this implies that they're going to have access to people in your company who can talk about that. Engineers have never been, in most organizations, customer-facing. Maybe they need to be. Maybe there need to be brown bag sessions with your product development team in which customers are invited to drop by. There's any number of ways to explore this opportunity. Smaller companies may feel that they're particularly challenged to do this, but also more able to do it. And when people ask me about the cloud, I say, the cloud allows the smallest company to use tools that were once only available to the largest, but it also allows the largest companies to rediscover the joy of being small, to rediscover the joy of having everyone in the company actually talk to a customer once in a while. Robert Townsend, when he was at Avis, had a rule that everybody in the company, no matter what their job, had to work a rental car counter in an airport for 2 weeks a year. Challenging. Claims that the PhD who ran their IT actually ran the first time a customer approached the counter. Wasn't prepared to be a customer-facing person. But you know, when I really want to get the heart rate rising in a room that's full of 100% IT people, I just say, look, for those of you who got into this business because you didn't really like dealing with people, I have some very uncomfortable news for you. Your ability to intuit and address human wants and needs is going to be the major determinant of your value to your organization for the rest of your career. Because being able to solder a connector really, really well, I'm sorry, we're going to pretty much take that business off the table. And boy, you really want to look at an uncomfortable room full of people. Imagine a ballroom about 3 times this size in Mumbai, where everyone there works for one of the big outsourcing companies that feed and water servers for a living. And I say, guys, between us, Google, Fujitsu, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, we don't plan to leave a lot of that business on the table for you guys to do at the medium scale wholesale level. So you've got 2 choices. You can move up the value chain, or you can take up farming. Satisfied customers used to be the goal. Doesn't work anymore. Used to be the job of sales was to delight a prospect long enough to turn them into a customer, and it was the job of service to keep them satisfied to the point that you would get their repeat business. That's not remotely enough anymore. The customer who's not actively delighted and telling their friends all the time how happy they are with your product is invisible. And invisible is not helpful, because research is coming out of places like MIT showing that print and media advertising will elevate your brand and make people interested in you, but only the recommendation of a trusted advisor, whether a friend or a professional peer, depending on the sphere, only that recommendation from a trusted advisor is going to turn someone from a prospect to a buyer today. And delighted customers are your only credible marketers. So service is not damage control. Service must be viewed today as a continual opportunity to re-enchant the customer over the entire lifespan of owning what we used to call your product. And it follows that within an organization, collaboration is now crucial. It used to be, we had a waterfall relationship in many industries where manufacturers wholesaled to distributors who put a small markup and wholesaled to retailers, and retailers owned the customer. Look at the auto industry in the US. That's a particularly good example, where the dealer owns the customer. It's very jealous of guarding that ownership. But now if the product increasingly is going to be connecting back to the mothership and telling the manufacturer things about actual use of the product, we're going to need a much more collaborative relationship, a much less feudal kind of war between retail and manufacturing. They're going to have to be working together in ways that they did not before. Any team member may need access to subject matter experts who can solve a problem in the moment. And what that also means is that within organizations, traditional hierarchical models of performance appraisal aren't going to be able to capture and reward the kind of behavior that you now need to incentivize. So we need to rethink our tools for coaching, mentoring, and performance appraisal at the same time. There's a metaphor that I steal from the US Air Force, a guy named John Boyd, who was teaching people not to get killed by being shot out of the sky, which is a powerful incentive for learning new behavior. He said, fundamentally, it's about a 4-step process: observe, orient, decide, act. IT's job has always been pretty much focused on decision, and maybe in some contexts, action. Increasingly, it must be IT's job to be observing and orienting as well. It is the job of IT not to align with the business. We used to use the expression business IT alignment, meaning get those geeks in IT to start remembering what the company does for a living. That was the old alignment. The new alignment is IT coming upstairs and saying, guys, you're running this company like it's still 1950. Here's the way the customers are behaving. Here's the way the supply chain needs to be engaged. Here's the way the competitive threats are emerging from different marketplaces. IT needs to be, borrowing the expression of Sheryl Sandberg, leaning in and saying, we're not just here to keep the lights on down in the server room. We're here to save the company from irrelevance. It's an important mission for IT to take on. And to be continually saying, it's our job to be observing what's happening, where are the new threats emerging, where are the new opportunities arising, orient, where are we, and what do we need to do to adjust our relationship to that environment? Can we make decisions quickly enough that we can be responding to the situation we're in instead of the situation we were in last quarter? And can we take action, which is fundamentally a cultural thing. And then when you've done that, you run the loop again and again and again. And over time, the company whose loop is inside everyone else's loop, that's running that loop more tightly, more rapidly than everybody else, over time, they're the ones who are going to win. So with that as setup, it's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Andy MacMillan. Andy is from a piece of what we do at data.com that is kind of answering a question that should have been asked a long time ago. Why are so many systems being built to pump around garbage data at ever-increasing speed with ever-improving efficiency? Data.com says, you know what? Maybe it's actually part of our job of delivering services and not software to say, if the point is to deliver effectiveness, the quality of the data in the system is actually part of our problem. We don't just sell you a bucket and let you pour whatever slop in it you want. We're going to bring you a bottle of good Chardonnay here. It's going to actually have good stuff. And it's been so much fun to see what happened. And we took that fundamentally novel crowdsourcing mechanism that used to be called Jigsaw, brought it in, fused it with other credible sources like Dun & Bradstreet, built the Data.com offering, and made it a critical layer. I've had the pleasure of working with Andy under simulated combat conditions in an internal scenario that we use within the company called Leading for Growth. It's a really interesting period when for 5 days you have to compete not merely against dinosaur IT vendors, you have to compete against 4 simulated Salesforce.coms. And there can only be one winner. It's a brutal, brutal exercise. And Andy and I are co-veterans of that. He was previously Vice President of Product Management at Oracle, where he was responsible for the strategy for the Oracle social network and web experience. And his MBA is much cooler than mine. Mine's only from Pepperdine, but his is from University of Edinburgh. So how cool is that? Andy, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Peter.
Your clicker.
It's a fantastic introduction. It's the first time I've heard Data.com referred to as a fine Chardonnay. I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind. So thank you very much for having me. How many of you have seen Mark Benioff's keynote on becoming a customer company? Okay, so maybe 40% of you. What I did this morning, I've got about 15 minutes where I wanted to set up some themes and some concepts and things that we see going on in the industry. And so what I did is I took some of that material, hopefully brought it together in a logical way for a little bit of an intro and hopefully some thought-provoking ideas and concepts that really all converge around becoming a customer company. Beyond this presentation, I would really recommend, we've published this keynote that he's done on YouTube. It's a fantastic, very well put together, great customer stories, customers involved telling the stories, and it's available on YouTube. So if you got to look at the Salesforce channel on YouTube, you can watch Mark deliver a much larger version of this presentation than I will give. But basically, we want to talk a little bit this morning about what does it take to become a customer company. And that's really the theme that we have at this event that Magnet 360 has done such a great job putting on. Really quickly, I have to include this slide for some reason that says, it's important. We are a publicly traded company, so we're going to talk about where we're going in the future, things that we're working on, and it's important that you look at the products that we have today if you're making decisions around buying our products. There is a customer revolution going on. I think really the point of this presentation is to try to take multiple things that we probably all sense that are going on and try to put some thoughts around how all these converge on a customer. I'm going to touch on 6 or 7 huge topics that you could probably spend 3 or 4 days at a conference on any one of these topics and go really deep and be really interested. What I want to do is talk about why these topics are important to a very important person to all of us, which is your customer. Why is the customer impacted by these trends? So Peter mentioned the connectivity of products, the connectivity of the platform, and that's really driving a lot of this new model with customers. I think Peter's setup on the old way that customers followed the rules is exactly correct. It used to be we had very specific channels to do very specific things with customers. And now we exist in a world of connected things, and those connected things don't follow all of those old rules. I really enjoyed the analogy or the story on Onstar. I actually worked on the initial Onstar project when I was at EDS. I worked on the General Motors account, and we were building Onstar. And there was this interesting moment in the project where this conversation happened about why is General Motors building a button in the car that connects the customer to General Motors? That button should connect the customer to the dealer. The dealer owns the customer. That's the way the rules are supposed to work. And we had all these conversations about how that's not the way the market's going, and General Motors needs to have a connection with these customers. And it was at a time where GM was really struggling, and being a native of Detroit, that's an important point in time for all of us from that area, and I think GM's doing a lot better. But it was that moment of crisis that finally enabled General Motors to say, no, we as a brand have to start connecting with our customers. And they kind of knew this inherently because of the problems they were coming up with, but it really speaks volumes to those old models. So there's this Internet of Things now, connected devices, connected cars. The phone is really becoming the remote control to connect all of these things. And the question is, how are you involved in that ecosystem, whether it's your products, your customers, your partners? And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. If you look at the time frame of what we've done in IT, and I know there's a lot of people who are from an IT background here in the room, we've also gone through this similar kind of rule-based structure model, right? We used to have mainframes and back office systems, and they were run very rigidly, and they did specific processes, and then we put computers on everybody's desks, and we started to become more collaborative, and some of those rules started breaking down. Then there was really the breakthrough with cloud computing that made these tools more ubiquitous and more available to people. And then we had mobile computing, which gave these tools to people in more places and gave these tools to more people. And what we've really got to now is a social revolution. And I want to be very clear about one thing, which is when we talk about a social revolution, we don't just mean that people are able to be on Facebook or that people can have a conversation about social type things. What I mean is that these things are interacting with each other. It's become, again, about people and relationships and the vehicle for getting things done. And that's really what the social revolution is about. And we've started to talk about this as a customer revolution. All of these things converge on a customer revolution. I'm going to talk through these trends, but all of them come down to there are new ways to connect with your customers. And I would argue if you're not connecting with your customer in these ways, your competitors will be, and soon they won't be your customers. These are essentially non-optional, to take Peter's urgency here. These are things that are happening, and these are multiple major trends that are all converging on a customer revolution. The first one of these is the social revolution. There are over 4 billion people today involved in social networks having conversations. This is an amazing shift in how people communicate. But one of the things that I think people often overlook or try to simplify is to try to make this about just our personal lives. This idea that I'm on Facebook to share pictures of my kids and talk to my family, and all those things are wonderful. But every day, over 150 million conversations, not individual posts, 150 million conversations happen about products and companies. 150 million. And that is growing up exponentially every month. This is happening, and it's happening about companies, it's happening about products, it's happening about every brand in this room. Even if you think you're a relatively small company in a relatively niche market, I guarantee you your customers are finding each other on these networks, and they are talking about you. And the question is, do you want to talk with them? It's also happening at an amazing speed because of the mobile revolution. Right? We look around the room. This is happening, right? This is not a surprise. But what this means is that the availability of these conversations is instant. People can do it as a reaction. I can have a bad customer service moment at a desk, right? Avis was the example Peter used. I could walk into Avis, have a bad customer experience, turn around, in a minute later, start a conversation about that interaction. The mobile revolution isn't just about convenience, it's about ubiquity. It means that these moments and conversations happen in an instant. And it means anyone can have these conversations. People don't go home and cool off, right? They do it now. They do it right then. It also means that they're smarter because of it. When I walk into a store and I want to buy something, even if I see something on the shelf that I want to buy, an impulse purchase, I pull up my phone and I do 5 minutes of research right there while standing at it. And companies are fighting this. A lot of researchers have started making the barcodes smaller and smaller, right? Their goal is they're trying to limit your ability to do this. And it's interesting, some retailers have now started to embrace this, and they're trying to be mobile-friendly retailers, and they're trying to give you an experience that says, come in and we will have people help you learn about the products, and they're putting larger scan codes there. And what they're doing is they're directing you to advocacy sites that they don't own or operate that talk about these products. And their goal is to say, maybe I look at this product, and that's the one I think I want to buy on an impulse, but when I start to do my research, it suggests 1 or 2 others. But if they're a large enough retailer, maybe those products are available too. and they can turn that experience into a sale as opposed to a customer walking away. But this means information is available to anyone and everyone at a moment's notice at their fingertips wherever they are, and a lot of that information will be information that you do not own or control. It's a big data revolution. I noticed a couple of the tables here about big data. I'm a data guy. I love data, but there's a lot of it, and it's going to get to be a lot more. GE, for example, has connected their engines, their airplane engines, into our application platform to collaborate on service. They collect billions of data points a second on the engines in their fleet. And out of that, they derive transactions that tell them what is needed to provide a better customer service. But this big data is about how do you scale your organization to deal with the magnitude of this information. We had a very interesting conversation earlier today where we were talking about customer engagement. And the reality is if there's 150 million conversations going on social channels and people are doing it in real time and they're expecting real-time interaction, right? If I'm on my mobile device, I walk away from that counter and I complain, the clock starts, right? Here's a big data problem for you. How do you look at this sea of everything that's going on every social network and out of all of that find out what's relevant to you in your company? How do you route that to the right person and how do you empower them to do something about it, right? And this is where communities come in. With all this data and so much interaction, how do you foster the ability to connect people together to have these conversations and participate in them yourself? Communities are amazing concepts. The idea that customer groups will form, prospect groups will form, partner groups will form, and you have an option to either join, participate, or facilitate those. And even if you join, participate, and facilitate those, there will be many of these. Some will be on your platform, some will be on other people's platform. But people are already self-organizing around solving problems. Those might be problems that you're in the market to solve. They might be talking about your products as part of those solutions. And the question is, are you participating? Are you doing this both in public and private places and giving people a vehicle to interact with you? Right? One of the most powerful things you can do in a sales cycle these days is have strong advocates that are participating willingly on their own behalf, oftentimes because they want that connection. Right? When I talk to customers and they say, I want to be part of your customer advisory board, I want to be part of your reference program, a lot of what they're looking for is the interaction with other people that are doing the same things they're doing and solving the same problems that they're solving. And that builds a very powerful community, and that is one of the biggest assets that you can be driving it as a company today. It's an apps revolution. Again, these things are all happening at once. Social, mobile, data, communities. And a lot of where this is happening is in apps. This is where your customers are today. Think of a lot of the interactions you have with some of the biggest brands you deal with. Right? I travel a lot with my role. A lot of the interaction I have in the travel industry, whether it's car rentals, hotels, airlines, car services, I have those interactions through apps. Those are no longer interactions where I'm going to a desk and dealing with a human being. And the challenge for organizations is because this is all real time and it's happening and we're trying to build this brand engagement, the relationship that you have to your customers will often be through these applications. Can you really solve problems through these applications? Can you provide them the information that they need? Can you be flexible with these apps? Right? It is no longer enough to say, hey, congratulations, we built an app, we pushed it out into a couple of app stores, and 24 months later, we're going to go back and make some updates. Right? That's not the world we live in. Right? As you roll out new features, new capabilities, new product lines, as you address issues that are in the marketplace, your apps need to be flexible, you need to be able to update them, you need to be able to push them out to your customers and provide them the experience that they want to have with your brand. This is all fueled by a cloud revolution. The revolutions we've been talking about to this point are not things that you are going to build in your data center and ship to your customers. It just isn't. That's not where they are. That's not where the action's at. That's not where the conversations are taking place. It's not where the data is sitting. It's not where the apps are sitting. The only thing that will allow you to do this is the cloud. You have to move your applications, your touch points, your customer interactions, your communities, and importantly, your employees. You, as a company, have to be in the cloud. You have to be there to meet them in this conversation that's about your brand, your services, and your products. And what this all really comes down to, and if there's one point you take away from all of this, the most important revolution that's going on in the marketplace today with your customers, with our customers, it's around trust. People want to have these kind of real-time, open and honest conversations, dialogues, and interactions with your company, and they want to do that based on a foundation of trust. All these trends lead to a more open set of conversations, more conversations. And it's about earning customer trust. It's about creating that value. And I'll give you a very simple story. I experienced this over just 2 weekends ago. I had a family member in town, and we were trying to get a car rental sorted out. And they had a problem where the car rental they had booked through a travel service, and they put them to a location that wasn't open. And we spent all this time calling call centers that weren't open on the weekend and finding locked doors. And dealing with this company was next to impossible until you walked up to a desk and found a person at the airport who said, we didn't create this problem. None of this was something that they had done there, but they said, I can help you fix this. I'm not supposed to, but I can help you fix this, right? That human interaction builds trust. Very often, if you look at the systems we've built over the last 2 decades to automate our businesses, we've put infrastructure in place that is the opposite of building trust. It's about building process. Dealing with your company cannot be like going to the DMV. In fact, a lot of DMVs today have been largely made more customer friendly than a lot of the business processes that we roll out in the private sector to our customers. So you have to build a set of capabilities, apps, infrastructure, and most importantly, empowering the people in your organization to build relationships on equal terms with you in the cloud, where these customers are, on the platforms and in the apps that they want, and that will be your platform for engagement. And as Peter said, customers will let you know if you are not doing this correctly. The important thing is to listen and respond. Agility to interact with your customers and respond is more important than the strategy plan you have for executing your current business model. When you have trust with your customers, they're actually quite forgiving. You can make missteps in a trusted relationship if you can react quickly and be open and say, maybe that's not what we should have done. Let's react and do something differently. This is how companies will sustain themselves in the next decade. Will be based on the relationships and the trust that they build between their brand and their customers. And you'll often hear brand people talking about how the customers own the brand now. To me, that's what trust means, right? We had a video that was part of the presentation that I highlighted earlier that Mark did outlining the customer company from Coca-Cola. And there's this great moment in the video where the CMO for Coca-Cola said, we made this mistake in the 80s where we thought we owned our brand. And our customers quickly informed us that we don't own our brand, they own our brand. We're servicing that brand. We're servicing that experience that they expect to get from Coca-Cola. And it changed the entire way they think about their company. And they're one of the leaders in this space. Is anybody a Facebook fan of Coca-Cola? The odds are actually pretty decent that several of us are. They have over 50 million fans on Facebook. And they engage with that fan community every day. They have tons and tons of people in the company that are empowered to participate with their customers. This is not 3 people that are trained in a social command center that deal with Facebook. This is part of how they've changed their company to say, we have 50 million customers on this channel that love our brand, and we need our employees, many of our employees who were never considered customer-facing before, to participate in that conversation with those customers. So I would say the premise here is that companies, in many cases, are disconnected from their customers in this new world. And importantly, oftentimes your employees are not. Employees are on these social networks. Your partners are on these networks. Employees have apps. Your partners have apps. In many cases, you built apps for your products and you put them into the cloud. But the question to ask yourself is our company participating in this? Have we really thought about what does it mean to be a customer company? If you look at your processes, all of your processes, are they open to your customer? Do they connect with your customer? Do they seek input from your customer? Do they respond to your customer? That's what being a customer company is about. It's not just taking a few employees and saying, hey, there's noise over there, let's go participate on this channel. It's saying, is our company really engaged with our customer in a real and meaningful way at scale across everything that we do, including our most important processes, with these new revolutions in mind? So how do you become a customer company? The first thing is really thinking about 4 main areas, and this is a big part of how we've thought through our strategy of connecting with our customers. The first is saying, am I connected with my customer on the channels and places and on the terms that my customer wants to be connected? It's also thinking about your employees. And this isn't just, although it is important, are your employees connected to each other and are they empowered? It's, are your employees connected to your customers? Right? It's breaking down those barriers so that someone can respond. When something comes in on Twitter and somebody reads that, this is not a Okay, that's a problem. Let's put that in a workflow. Let's route it over to a committee that will think about a response, and then we'll run an approval up the chain, and 3 weeks later we will respond on Twitter, right? It's over at that point. This is saying, are your employees really connected into these processes? It's your partners, right? Your partners are a big part of your brand. Today's a great demonstration of that. Fantastic event. A couple partners coming together and working together to put this event together. Your partners are part of this process. So are your partners connected to your employees, your customers, connected to your processes, connected to what your company is and what your company does? And perhaps the biggest accelerator we will see of this over the next couple of years is connected products. Peter talked about at the Consumer Electronics Show, you know, it's amazing, almost every booth, the iPhone was the connector to whatever the product was. It was like somebody had told everybody the year before, connect all your products to the iPhone. Everybody showed up the following year and they had done that. Any booth you went to, you could control your refrigerator, your front door, your camera, your car. Everything was, your remote control was your phone. And Mark asked the right question at the event. Is your company connected to your customer as part of that process? Customer support, partners, other customers, employees, are they engaged in that process, or you have merely hooked two machines together? And as we bring more and more of these products, whether they're services or consumer products or devices, into this connected model, it will only accelerate these other activities. So my last slide, I wanted to leave the group with some things to think about. Again, we're just trying to tee up some conversations to have throughout the day. The keynotes will talk about these further. The birds of a feather lunch conversations will talk about these things. The keynote and breakouts will talk about these things. But how do you market to your customers when they are everywhere and in real time? How do you sell as a team to your customer? And keep in mind that your team is your employees, your partners, and probably your existing customers, because they're going to be part of that process. How do you service customers when they're everywhere and they're in real time? Right? This is no longer detach the form, fill out your complaint, send it in, 6 to 8 weeks later we'll mail you back as long as you put a postage stamp envelope in the package with it. Right? This is real time, and this again is not just your customer support people. This is really important. And many of you experience this with Salesforce. When you call Salesforce with a really difficult technical problem, one of the first things we do is get an engineer involved who actually participates in that conversation. 3 years ago, that was a novel concept. Those were people that did it, as Peter said, they didn't talk to customers, right? So this is servicing with the entire company focused on service. How do you build a customer platform? All this activity is going on. What's your customer platform and how you engage in all these different activities? From feedback, to listening, to social channel engagement, to marketing, to selling, to servicing. What's your customer platform? And if you don't know the answer to that, maybe that's your biggest takeaway today. What's my customer platform? How am I changing the way our company works with our customers? To Peter's point about IT now being responsible for bringing these strategic objectives up in the organization and to the board, that's a great question for your board. If a lot of this today doesn't resonate with how you're running your business today or how you feel the business that you're part of is being run, is to say, what's our customer platform? Right? How are we engaging our customers? And then how do you transform the way you work? How do you go from these monolithic processes, these command and control structures, but really change the organization? How do you say as a company, our interaction with our customers is the most important thing that we do, and it's what creates the most value, and how do we empower our organization to do that? And I would think of that story about the car rental company when you think about what that really means. Because what a lot of people tell me is, I feel like I work with a lot of really nice people. I feel like it's a really great company, but I don't feel like our interactions with our customers reflect that. And that's what this problem is. That's where we've built processes and systems trying to be efficient and not engaging, right? I worked at a company one time, a small company, where we measured the call center people on calls closed. So a lot of calls went like, we don't do that, can I close this, right? That's not a really good outcome, but it was exactly what we were trying to accomplish, apparently, with how we were telling people they would be rewarded and what we were trying to accomplish. So really think about the way you work, right? Is what you do and the interactions that you have driving at becoming a customer company. And that's a lot about what we're going to talk about for the rest of the day. So with that, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Scott. I have a piece of paper here so I don't screw up his bio, which I think is fantastic, so I want to make sure I get it right. Scott's an entrepreneur and a visionary leader who spent nearly 20 years growing marketing services and technology businesses into industry powerhouses. Common themes have included innovation, entrepreneurship, and an ability to recognize emerging market technologies and how to bring to market whether it's his own ventures or those of his clients. As the managing partner of Magnet 360, Scott enjoys the opportunity to advise clients on the best uses of integrated marketing technology and services. He has twice been recognized as a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. He has been a finalist for the MHTA Techni Award, and he's been recognized by the Business Journal as one of the 40 under 40. Scott was also named by Twin City Businesses as one of 200 Minnesotans you should know, which is fantastic. Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, thank you for being here. We are really excited to talk about building customer companies. I love the 5 questions on how to build a customer company. I briefly want to share a few things about Magnet 360 and how we're set up to help our customers build customer companies. So it starts with a mantra. The idea of mantras come from Guy Kawasaki. It's 2 or 3 words that say, why do you exist? What are you out to do? And for us, our mantra is engagement for outcomes. It's our job to help our customers engage their most important audiences and drive a meaningful, measurable outcome. If you're going to build a customer company, it's going to be all about how we're going to engage those audiences and drive outcomes that build our businesses and make our businesses more sustainable and allow our businesses to grow. Now, when I think about what are the elements of building a customer company, there needs to be great audience engagement. There needs to be customer data at the center of all of that. And as we build these things, these are long-term journeys, and we need to have agile methodologies. We need to work in an iterative fashion to build these, tie these systems together and build these solutions. And so when we think about Magnet 360 and how we're structured and what makes us unique in the marketplace, it is the 3 of these things brought together. Audience engagement strategy and ability to execute on that, Salesforce expertise as the CRM of choice, and the ability to work in an agile and iterative fashion. So to put a face to that, the things that we do for our customers, the branded apps, sites, communities, the social campaign management, the marketing automation, all of it tied to CRM for world-class customers, it looks like that. And when we think about our expertise with Salesforce, we've been a partner since 2004. We're a gold partner. We have over 1,500 deployments on the platform. And we are one of the few system integrators in the world that Salesforce is an equity investor in. We're very proud of that because we have a very close partnership with Salesforce, and we work with senior management and the people in the field to help build customer companies every single day. And so the things that we do, relationship management, as well as branded app sites and communities leveraging Salesforce technologies, marketing automation, working both with ExactTarget, which was recently acquired by Salesforce, as well as a market leader in B2B marketing automation in Marketo, and then social campaign management with the Marketing Cloud, social listening, social engagement, and social advertising. And we do it in an iterative fashion. The days of waterfall and trying to figure out months of requirements before we write a line of code or do anything are in the past. When we work with our customers, we work in short sprints, lean teams, and we want to get in a couple of weeks something done that you can say, I see the outcome, I see the result, and as business requirements change, as the world around us evolves, we want to be in a position that the programs that we're building for our customers are agile and that we can roll with it and we can make those changes and make sure that what we're building is what our customers need so they can drive engagement for outcomes. Now, we have a core value at Magnet 360 around client trust being earned every day. Some of you may know that Magnet 360 is the fastest growing company in the state of Minnesota. We had over 400% growth over the past 3 years, and it is because of the great clients that we have the privilege to work with and because we work hard to earn their trust every day so we can retain those clients. When we show a list of customers, it is an active roster of clients, the folks that we are working with right now. And we greatly value the relationships we have with each of you and that you've helped us build our business as we help you build yours. So we're approaching 100 people. Our headquarters is right across the street in the West End. But we also have an office in New York. And we have our first hires in Chicago and San Fran as we expand our presence. We were recently announced by Star Trib as the best place to work in the small business category, businesses with 50 to 150 employees, so we were very proud of that. And I said we're fastest growing business in the state, and we hope to continue that. So to feed in to both the idea of building customer companies, but also to hopefully set up what Jeremiah is going to talk to us about in a few minutes around the collaborative economy. we have a point of view on audience engagement. And I love this quote. It comes from Forrester. The only sustainable competitive advantage is of knowledge of and engagement with customers. And so we have a point of view on that. And we call it the Magnet 360 engagement quadrants. And we think about what we want to do with an audience. We want to acquire, and we want to retain. And when we think about the things that we do in that, we have marketing activities. And whether the marketing activities are paid search, whether it's the TV spots or billboards or traditional media or other digital activities, there's all these things we're doing as a business to try to figure out how can we engage with an audience. So we do all this stuff, and it all comes down to how we reach an individual. But as businesses, more often than not, once we have that individual, we take the data about them and we put it in a paper shredder. And we put it into a bunch of different systems. So if a customer's been in a store, there's a retail point-of-sale system. If they bought on a website, it's through e-commerce. Every time we visit a website, there are analytics that have individual interactions. Typically, they're tracked as anonymous behavior. We have email marketing platforms. We have loyalty platforms. We have media buying platforms that have information about customers. And so we take all this stuff about the individual, and we split it up, and then we never reassemble it. Bob or Mary is in each of these systems, but as unique individuals, not as one individual. Now, that's the old world, but now we get to add that lens of social data. And we think about all of these prospects and customers. They're out there as well. There's data about them. There's information that they are sharing about themselves that's publicly and freely available. And whether it's in the large networks of Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or whether it's in specialty communities, blogs, and other forums, there's all this stuff out there, which by and large, most businesses are ignoring. We might be listening to sentiments. We might be getting ideas about how products and services are trending. We might have customer service looking at trying to create cases out of individual complaints and things like that. But by and large, this data that's freely available is not connected to that data on the left. And then when we think about all the things that drive engagement, is we have these communities. And whether the communities are the social communities, the networks we have through Facebook and Twitter, whether it's in the office environment and it's the water cooler talk that people have, whether it's their personal social communities, friends, the neighborhood, whatever. There are communities. And the fact is we spend all this time as a business thinking about what's the message we're going to share and how do we reach an individual, and yet a huge portion of what's going to drive influence and product purchase is going to be the word of mouth going around in these communities that we have absolutely no control over. So what do we do about it all? So for us, we think about the first step is that we are going to centralize profile data. We're going to take Humpty Dumpty and we're going to reassemble them. We're going to take all those systems that are broken and siloed, and we're going to connect them together. And we're going to put that information in our CRM at Salesforce so that we can act on it. Then we're going to connect it to the social channels. We're going to say who that is in our systems, these important prospects and customers, what can we learn about them by connecting to social channels? Typically, if you give me an email address, our team's going to find about 30 to 40% matches to the social network. So if it's a personal email address, it might be that we find them in Facebook or Twitter. If it's a business email address, we'll probably find them in LinkedIn or Twitter as well. But we're going to connect the dots. And then we're going to try to create that moment where a customer or a prospect can say, they just get me. They know me. They took care of me. We went to Disney World last year, and apparently we are a Disney family because it's our 6th year of going. And Disney has spent over $1 billion. They're in an initiative to take their customer data and remake the park experience. And so when we got off the Magic Express, there was somebody waiting at the bus, and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Litman, welcome back to the Grand Floridian. This must be Jackson and Chase. Boys, I hope you had a great day traveling from Minneapolis. We can't wait to get you into the Magic Kingdom to have a wonderful day. And there were 40 people that got off that bus, but they welcomed me. And I thought, damn right, I've been here 6 times. I've spent a fortune on this place. And thank you. I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you recognized. And they created that moment of surprise and delight. And the thing is, I've gone out and told that story to hundreds and hundreds of people because of the way it impacted me. And you think about that picture of the networks and the kind of influence we get through the word-of-mouth stories we get, the influence we get through the user ratings and websites and other stories. And so we're trying to create all of that. And so we build the enriched profile about our customers and prospects so we can figure out best how to communicate with them, whether it is how the call center is going to answer the call, how the sales agent or sales rep is going to make a call, how we're going to inform our marketing automation programs to send the right message to the right people at the right time so we can better engage with them to drive successful outcomes. So that is a little bit about Magnet 360 in our view about how to build customer companies, how we're set up to do it, and how to drive that kind of engagement. And with that, I'm really excited to introduce you to and welcome you to our keynote speaker, Jeremiah Owyang. Jeremiah is an industry analyst on customer strategy and a partner at the Altimeter Group. He's an author on the highly acclaimed blog Web Strategy, and he focuses on how corporations connect with their customers using web technologies. Jeremiah was previously at Forrester Research as a senior analyst focused on social computing for the interactive marketer. And Jeremiah and his team at Altimeter have published numerous research reports on social business. He's frequently quoted in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, USA Today, and he's been a frequent keynote speaker at business and technology conferences around the world. At Magnet 360, we've had the pleasure of working with clients of ours with Jeremiah and Altimeter. He is truly visionary. He is collaborative. He is, for somebody with his experience and knowledge, super easy to work with. And he brings ideas with him that help our customers materialize our mantra of engagement for outcomes. Jeremiah, welcome.
Thank you. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I hail from San Francisco. And if you wanted to tweet about me or tweet with me, my account is, just back up one, is J Owyang, J-O-W-Y-A-N-G, my first initial last name. So I want to tell you about a recent trip I took to Denmark. Any Danish folks? Danish blood in the room? Anybody? A few over there? And I went to Copenhagen, and I got to visit the palace. And I got to learn about this gentleman here. Meet King Frederick VII. Now, King Fred, he was born a king from a long succession of kings, but he was at risk to lose it all by losing his head, because all across Europe, there were revolutions. Kings and queens were losing their heads as they fought these revolutions. Now, King Fred had one of two choices. The first choice is to try to figure out how to fight this revolution and maybe lose his head, or two, to collaborate with them. What choice did he make? Now, I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But I want to talk about the customer revolution that's happening right here. And this tees up nicely what Peter and Andy were talking about. But this next revolution isn't just the one we've been talking around social. The next phase, and my job is to look at the next things that are coming, is about the sharing revolution. Now, if you've seen the cover of The Economist here, it's pictured right front in mainstream media, or maybe on Forbes magazine, the CEO of Airbnb. What is the sharing revolution? It's when people use social and mobile apps, to Andy's point, not just to share media and ideas, but they're sharing goods and services with each other. Now, what does that mean to us, the many corporations, small businesses, medium businesses, and large super companies that are here? It means that customers can buy a product once and share it many times with each other and not have to buy again. That's what it means. It means we could have potential lost revenues and even lost jobs. Now, let's take a look at how this works out in the structure on the phases of the internet. The first phase of the internet, which we could just blanket call, is the internet era. And this is when a small group of people could publish on websites using either simple tools like WordPress or write in their own ways and using HTML. But it was limited to people who had that technical knowledge. This is a great time for corporations to create corporate websites and craft what's called a brand experience. What does a brand experience sound like? It sounds like this. I'm the brand, I talk, you listen. That's a brand experience. Then the next phase came, and Andy teed up all of those revolutions that are happening. And we are here today. And we call that the social media age, when anybody can actually say whatever they want to on Twitter or Facebook. They can share their ideas without having technical knowledge. And this created a change effect as power shifted to those who published. Let's see a show of hands. How many of you have adopted social for your business? Okay, nearly the entire room. We're here today, right? So people are sharing their ideas and media in the social media age. The next phase, and this is what I'm going to spend the next period talking about, and on my blog and in my research, is what we call the collaborative economy age. And this is when people use the same exact tools, social, mobile, and apps, but they're sharing goods and services. And it means there's a change in the power as the crowd starts to become a company. Today's theme is about becoming your customer company. I'm telling you that's not far enough. I'm telling you the next phase is the crowd is becoming a company. So I conducted research. I saw this trend coming. And I saw a similar trend in 2005 when I worked in corporate at Hitachi. I said, oh God, this social media thing's coming. Our customers publish price lists of our products, and it radically disrupted our sales teams because there were different prices depending on how much money different clients had. And they shared all of that. And I said, oh, geez, this is coming. And I saw that, and then I studied that. I see the same thing coming now. So in this research, which is right in front of you, everybody here has a printed copy of this report, and it's available online for the whole world at no cost, is we pose this question, and I will answer it today for all of us. What role do corporations play if people don't need them? Now, the good news is there is a solution, and we call this the collaborative economy. Let's define what it is. We call this an economic model where there's shared ownership and shared access between the people, startups, and corporations. It means your customers own part of your product, and it means they want to share your product or even borrow it from them. The interesting finding is that the only way for corporations and companies, from small business to large, to participate in this collaborative economy is you do have to let go. But if you do it, you will gain more. So let's take a look at a few examples. And the way we'll look at this is to see whether or not this really matters. And the question that we posed in the research is this really a business disruption? Well, I'm here to tell you that sharing isn't anything new. In fact, our moms told us and taught us how to share. Those who shared at school got better things. Those who share in the workplace sometimes can get better things too, depends how their corporate culture is. But think about in your own family life or in a societal life. Those who share often are in a better situation. Sharing's not new, but now it can happen with greater velocity and scale, and it's not limited to any physical boundaries. We can share goods and services very quickly. So let's imagine that we're going to go on a business trip, and I'm going to go on a business trip with my friend Dan, one of the co-founders of Magnet 360. And Dan, where do you want to go? Idaho. We're going to go to Idaho, but we're going to tap into the crowd, and we're not going to buy anything from any corporation during this business trip. Ready? Okay. Now, to get to Idaho, we don't need to use a formal cab company or even a formal bus. We could actually tap into the crowd and get somebody from a local neighborhood in our area to drive us. Meet Lyft, L-Y-F-T. Has anybody seen a Lyft car around town? Okay, a couple hands. They have these pink mustaches that are given to them once they've been vetted. And it means they can act like a taxi, even though they don't have the official city medallions to do so. Some cities have claimed that they're illegal, but it's happening. They're unable to stop it because they take the mustache off. So we're on our trip, and we get to Idaho. Now, rather than stay at a Marriott, Hyatt, or Hilton, we could stay at somebody else's house using a tool like Airbnb and stay at somebody's local guest house. Dan will get one, I can get one. We can even have guest rooms. It means we can do this without the corporation, and we're using social and mobile. Now, our company is going well. You know, whatever Dan touches turns to gold, 400% growth. But it means that we actually want to grow the company faster. So we want to get funding. But rather than go to the bank, we don't have to go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or local credit union. We can get money from the crowd. Meet Lending Club, where it's peer-to-peer lending. There's also Prosper, and actually Kiva's in the room. Raise your hand, Kiva, wherever you went. Back there, over there, great. So that's an opportunity for people to get money from each other rather than a formal institution. Now, our little business venture is going well, and we want to staff it. But rather than being limited to the staff of folks in Idaho or even in the general area, we can staff very quickly using tools like Odesk, TaskRabbit, Crowdflower, Elance, and activate a workforce on demand from around the globe. We need to feed some of these people who are in our local place, so we can actually use local sites like Feastly, which means anybody in a neighborhood in Idaho can have us over for dinner, take some dollars from us, and give us a local home-cooked meal. They're acting like a restaurant, but we don't have to go to one. What about office space? This is liquid space. We can rent a place to work from another company, but without having to use a traditional property manager. We can rent from a company that has excess space without going to a traditional company. And two more examples. We need to stock our office. We need to stock our houses with products and goods. Guess what? We don't have to go to Target or Best Buy to do that. We can get it from Yerdle. Yerdle works with Facebook.com, and it's founded by the former chief strategy officer of Walmart. And the mission of Yerdle is for people to share and gift goods that are just lying around in inventory rather than having to buy them. Another similar example is one called Stoke Box, where anybody who has kids like Scott, he can get a box of children's goods for age 5 or age 7, boys or girls, for $5 shipping costs. And when he's done with it, he can ship that off to another person, and he doesn't have to buy. In all of those examples, B2B, B2C, transportation, hospitality, restaurant, CPG, retail, I showed you how the crowd can get what they want. Dan and I can get what we want, and we don't have to spend a lot of money. And we don't have to use traditional companies or corporations. Is that disruptive? Why don't we put some numbers behind it? I'll give you one example. We'll just do the first vertical. Forbes magazine says that the average car is worth $30,000. UC Berkeley did a study and found out that a properly shared car could reduce the need for 9 cars off the road. That's a $270,000 opportunity loss to Detroit, Toyota, and Honda. Now, it's just not the car cost. What about the car loan? That's easily more than that value. But what about car insurance? What about gas? What about bridge tolls, parking, car washes, dealerships? What did I miss? I could easily draw up a financial argument that one properly shared car is $1 million worth of ecosystem change. That's one car. What about 100 cars? What about 100,000 cars? What about 100 million cars? So in our research, we posed, is this a disruption? And we absolutely believe this is a business disruption. Now, the next question you're probably asking is, how long is this going to be here? Is this just a fad? Who really uses it? Is it going away? So we posed that question, that second question, in our research. And we found out that there's over 12 different factors that are actually causing this to happen. but I boiled it down to 3 things, and you'll see this in the report as well. The first one is the societal factors. 2 is the economic and financial ones. And 3 is the enablement of technology. Let's go through each. First, societal factors. I'd like to share something personal. I have become a conscientious or a conscious consumer. I'm very careful about what I buy, and I try to share things. So I'm starting to live in this collaborative economy. I use Airbnb when I can. I've let people rent my car right off the front curb of my house using Relay Ride, and I try to not consume things. In fact, in the last 2 months, I can count on one hand the physical goods I've actually bought. That doesn't include food or gas or the normal consumables. I know what I bought, and I'm trying not to buy too much. Now, I don't think I'm alone. In fact, there's a whole generation of youth that have no choice, saddled with college debt, and this generation grew up on the internet, which the default behavior is sharing. These college graduates, this is their natural behavior. In fact, this study from Shareable magazine, which was done a few years ago, said that 75% of those they predicted that they would continue to share physical objects and spaces over the next 5 years. And if anybody's been to Europe or Asia, you'll see that these behaviors of sharing goods and services have been around for a long time. It's not new. Anybody who lives in New York, she's from New York, sharing has been rolled out even from the mayor, Bloomberg, rolled out sharing bikes called city bikes. This trend is sweeping across cities, countries, and will impact corporations. So it means that people want to share goods. And I'll tell you one story. I interviewed for this research one young executive who's making over 6 figures, but he's not even 30. He's a banker in Silicon Valley. And he said he loves to live a life of luxury, staying at fancy hotels and driving nice cars. But he said, you know what, Jeremiah? I don't want to own luxury. I just want access to it. I just want to borrow it or rent it on demand. I don't need to own it. I just want access to it. The second factor is the economic factors, and that little curve that you saw represents the people on this planet when I was born and when I'm in my 70s and might be an old man. When I was born, there was about 4 billion people on this planet. If I live to be that old, the experts predict there will be over 9 billion people, almost doubling. It means that Earth's population and our demand for resources are going to only increase, but our actual resources stay fixed. We know this, it's simple math. So it means that when people buy something, they might want to activate it. Anybody here have a storage shed or a storage unit that they put things into, or have a spare garage filled with stuff? All of that stuff can be activated and turned into revenue, ongoing revenue, selling it or renting it out to others when not needed. And as population increases, this demand for the economic sense to matter will only increase. It's no surprise that we saw Airbnb and these car-sharing services bubble up quickly around 2009 and 10, right when we had that severe economic downturn. People were struggling to stay in their homes, so one way they could do it is rent out a room, and maybe even rent out a house. This made a lot of sense for that period of time. It triggered that economic change. And the last reason is the technology enablement. Technology makes it so easy. How many of you have shared something on a social network, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, in the last 24 hours? Way over half of the room. So you were already sharing media and ideas. The next phase is to share goods and services. On the planet, there's 87 phones per 100 people. Granted, some people have 2, maybe even 3 phones in some countries. And when I looked at 200 of these sharing startups, I did analysis of them and I broke them down into their business models, how they work, which industries. I did find out that 75% of them are pinned off social networks, and around 50% of them use Facebook Connect. It means that this sharing revolution is pinned off the social media revolution, which has pinned off the internet. The last stat I'll share is there's been a tremendous amount of VC funding into this space. When I looked at those 200 startups, I found out that 37% of them have been funded. On average, $29 million was the average. In net total, that was $2 billion of funding into this brand new category that's only been around for 3 years. So the question is this movement going to go away? Is it a fad? And based upon population only increasing, people are already sharing around the globe, and technology is already here, it's my call that this is an unstoppable movement. And the only way you can stop this is if you stop the internet. So what do we do? I made a point that this is a business disruption. I've made a point that it's not going away. Well, maybe we can learn something from King Frederick VII of Denmark. And he saw that there was a revolution coming at his golden gilded gates. And he had one of two choices: fight them, maybe lose his head, or two, try to collaborate with them. And he chose the latter. He chose to collaborate with these revolutionaries and work with them. And what he did is he came in front of his gates and he created a new constitution, this is an image of that gave the power to the people. And he set up a 3-department representative democracy, but it still had a monarchy written into it. So he built a system to collaborate with them. What happened to King Fred? I'll tell you about him in a minute. But let's get back to us. The opportunity for us, as business people, as business owners, is to join the collaborative economy. Just like we've joined the internet, just like we've joined social media, just like we've joined mobile. But now we also join this movement. And I'm excited to present to you, this report has only been around for 6 weeks. This is really new information. Is you have the opportunity now to join the collaborative economy value chain. And I hope this image becomes a foundation for your business planning, because it offers an opportunity for new business models for you to tap into. Now, along this triangle, at the very top, you see that there's products. On the bottom right is services. And on the bottom left is marketplaces. And it's a very simple change that we have to do. What we have to do is turn products into services. Services become marketplaces. And marketplaces build your products. And I'll walk through each of these phases. I'll define what it is, and I'm going to give you examples of what innovative corporations are doing right now, today, real-world examples, and I'll leave you with a few insights after each of these 3. Ready? All right, let's take a look at that first one. Your products have to become services, and we call this business opportunity a company as a service. And it means if you sell goods, or if you sell goods and products, it means that you don't just sell them, but now you make them available for rent, on demand, subscription, membership, or even gifted. Seems strange? It's not strange. This is an old business model. Companies like Netflix and Salesforce, DVDs on demand, and software as a service have been around for over 10 years. This already exists, but those have mainly been in the cloud. So let's take a look at some other examples. Who's being disrupted by car sharing services? Lyft, Relay Ride, Zipcar, Uber, Sidecar. There's a number of car sharing services. And they're disrupting, obviously, car rental companies, but more importantly, people that sell cars, like Toyota and BMW. I had a chance to spend time with one of the chief strategy officers at BMW, and he talked about that they already predict and they know that by year 2050, the world's cities will be saturated with cars, and you can't fit any more cars into cities. And they know by that time they have to make their cars available on demand. You should be able to walk up to a car and it will open for you automatically using your mobile device. It'll know who you are and configure the seats, and you get in and drive, get to your destination, leave it, and go to your next thing. You won't own a car, you'll just have access to it. So to start that transition, both BMW and Toyota now rent cars from their dealership lots in San Francisco. This just happened a few months ago. This is a reality. They're already testing this new business model out. You can walk up to the dealership and purchase that car, but on a rental basis, and even if you wanted to buy it afterwards, after testing it, you could. But what if you sell consumable goods? What about shavers? Meet Dollar Shave Club. They send gentlemen, perhaps ladies too, new set of shavers every month, and you get this in an ongoing membership. Now, the upside for Dollar Shave Club is they have a long-term agreement with their customers. Talk about loyalty. Stop trying to sell one product over and over and over after every single season. They go to the store and see many other shavers. Sell one, but sell it many different times. Another example is beauty as a service. Meet Beauty Box. For $12 a month, you get a plethora of different items, makeup, perfume, all for your trial and leisure based upon the season. And you don't have to go to the store. Beauty Box. Or high-end luxury. You can rent these $3,000 purses for $200 or $300 for a few weeks. If you're into style and fashion and you want to have the latest fashions, but you don't necessarily need to own it, Bag, Borrow, and Steal allows you to rent purses with the opportunity to buy it and then sell it back if you wanted to. They even offer a value-added service of cleaning the handbags, purchase, clutches, hobos, and I'm trying to learn them all. Did I get it? Okay, good. I got an approval. And you can send them back for a cleaning service. So they're adding value-added services on top of their goods. And the last one, this one is the most innovative I've seen, is Peugeot, a French car company, is now moving into the mobility space. And instead of just selling cars, they're selling memberships. Memberships to what? Memberships to mobility. There's a new club they created called the MU Club. And if you purchase this membership, it means that you have access to not just their cars, but also electric cars and vans and car sharing and local city buses, and get ready for this one, and bikes. Everything that you need to be mobile, you now have a subscription, a membership to get around town. It means that this company's changed the value prop from just selling things that have four wheels to trying to be that mobility solution provider. And this is called company as a service. So what are the 3 insights to remember from company as a service? This is for companies that sell goods and products. It means that you must now consider making them available on demand. I interviewed one software company that enables software subscriptions called Zora, Z-U-O-R-A. It's in the report, and they are an app exchange partner for Salesforce. This software already exists. You just have to tap it into your inventory and then your customer relationship management software. Second is, rather than sell a product once, change your mindset. Sell it 100 times. Don't sell it once, sell it 1,000 times. And number 3, the way that you activate this, your actual pieces you move into your business plan, is focus on rentals, subscriptions, and memberships. Company as a service. Ready for the next one? It gets more complicated, and the investments increase as we move around the triangle. But the payoffs get greater as we move around. Let's do this next one. And this is when you have services, they now must become marketplaces. And we call this motivate a marketplace. What does motivate a marketplace look like? Well, the verbs change from service. Instead, corporations, companies, businesses must enable reselling, co-ownership, swapping, lending, and even gifting of products. So who's being disrupted by Airbnb? Let's hear some names. Marriott. Who else? Restaurants, right? All hotels. I agree with you. In fact, what these hotel companies are doing, whoever said Marriott was spot on, these hotel companies are funding the lobbyists who are working with policy providers at federal and state and city level to fight Airbnb. Airbnb is declared illegal, sometimes in Amsterdam because it goes on and off, Berkeley, as I understand it, and recently in New York. But they still can't stop it. So Airbnb, when they were in Amsterdam, when it was declared illegal, they said, fine, we're not going to rent out homes. But you can stay in their homes using our website and tips are accepted. You can't stop this. And even in New York, you'd only be fined if you were caught. Granted, if it's illegal, that's illegal behavior. I don't endorse illegal behavior. But what I'm suggesting is you can't stop it. But instead, there is a business opportunity for Marriott and every other hotel company, is to embrace and collaborate with it. Here's the business opportunity that we found in the research, that Marriott could actually certify that guest house here in Idaho. And when Dan and I go to Idaho, we would know this is at Marriott, some level of quality of service. And this owner of this guest house would know that Dan and I are from the loyalty program and are trusted members. And Marriott could sell those awesome soaps and lotions to the owner and even sell concierge and cleaning services. The opportunity is that corporations have a play here and they can add new value, but it means they have to enable your community to become your marketplace. Let's give an example. That is a fictitious one. A company called Scottevest. Anybody know Scottevest? I wear Scottevest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Scottevest is for travelers that love high-tech gear, and it puts all your stuff away in a hidden way, and you don't look like a dorky tourist, basically. You can have your cell phone here, and your passport's tucked inside so it won't be ripped off. And it's a wonderful thing, and they thread the wires through, and you can have your earbuds. Dan, you'd be a great guy to get. In fact, I'm going to have Scott send you one. I actually will. Big. Got it. Big. So Scottevest, and I interviewed Scott because he sells apparel, and his margins are low, right? These are really tight. I said, would you ever participate in this marketplace? And he said, it's a little bit hard. I'm certainly not going to clean it. I don't want to deal with used goods. But instead what he did is from his own corporate.com. You can go to scottevest.com. You'll see on the rotating banner that they actually point to their marketplace on eBay. They don't have a partnership with eBay, but they're saying if you want to find gently worn Scottevest on eBay, maybe you just want to trial out the product. Only 6 people in this room out of 300 knew what it was. But now that I've told you, you could actually get a used one from somebody on eBay and activate and access a new market. Remember that example I showed you of bag, borrow, and steal, those $3,000 purses available? Nordstrom should be doing that. Bloomingdale's should be doing that. You should make those high-end products available to a younger market that's just on their up and up. One of the great examples that I've seen is one called, it's a weird name, Swapping. And this is a UK retailer who makes apparel. And they're becoming very green and conscious because they know that apparel is a massive contributor to landfills. So they set up this program called Swapping. And you can bring in your old used clothes and leave them there in a bin, and you might be eligible for a gift card. And they're encouraging their consumers to think good about recycling their clothes, and these clothes will go to people in emerging markets. I call them opportunity markets. Perhaps the most notable example is when Patagonia, who believes in sustainability and being eco-friendly, they partnered with eBay in this formal relationship called the Common Threads. And this is a program where Patagonia said, consumers, don't buy anything. Really, don't. But if you need to buy, try to buy it used here with our partners on eBay. And if you really love it, come to our store and buy it new. They actually said that in their marketing. It's pretty innovative. So this is already starting to happen with a few innovative companies that are motivating a marketplace. So 3 insights from Motivate a Marketplace. Companies must enable your customers to resell, swap, and gift. The natural reaction is not to do that. But what I'm suggesting is you foster a new business experience. You're enabling peer-to-peer relationships. You enable your customers to activate other customers. They're going to do it anyway. Why not do it around your brand? Why not do it on your own platform? Why not do it on your own .com? Why not do it on your own salessites.com or even on extended sites or groups experience? And lastly, if you enable these new peer-to-peer relationships, it means you can extract new revenues from it. You can take a cut from the transaction. You can offer new value-added services. There's a lot of new things that you can do if you enable this new set of transactions. And this is called Motivate a Marketplace. Let's do this last one. In the collaborative economy value chain, it gets more complicated, but the payoff is bigger. And this one we call Provide a Platform. And in Provide a Platform, it means that the crowd becomes your company, which is tightly wound to the theme of today, a customer company. But I want to go even further. It means that the crowd is augmenting every single business function in your company. Every business function. And it sounds like this: ideation with the crowd, funding, maybe building and developing products. What about if the crowd distributed your products, marketed, sold it, and even shared the revenue with you? In this phase, the crowd becomes the company. Provide a platform means that you give them a set and an area. It means you still have some control. You define what these parameters are. You don't give up all control. You set the parameters on how far and when this will go. And it means that we have to focus on that co word, C-O. We all know this work. We're all employees who work at a company. And this word is tightly wound around what we call today as collaboration, which is common in nearly all of these tools that you're going to look at in the breakouts and in the tracks and even in the exploratory sessions. But now I want to think about adding that co-word in front of all of these words in addition. Co-fund, co-design, develop, produce, deliver, store, and even co-market. Everything in your company has a co in front of it. The crowd is part of that. Let me give you some examples. A lot of this is happening in the startup space now, and that's good. It means that this will also be replicated in enterprise and company software. The example I love to give is when Mark Benioff wrote a post called the Facebook Imperative. Has anybody ever seen that or heard about that? That was on TechCrunch. And that was, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And right after that, Salesforce launched an enterprise version of Facebook called Chatter. Enterprise software copies what happens in consumer software. I've seen this trend over and over and over and over and again, and it's about to happen again. So you ready to see what's about to happen? Let's take a look at the startups. Let's talk about funding. Has anybody heard of Kickstarter? Okay, about a third of the room. Kickstarter allows the crowd to fund the development of new products, goods, and sometimes media. I actually threw in a few dollars for this watch. I don't know if I'll ever see it. It's called the Pebble. And the Pebble is a digital watch. It'll connect with your Bluetooth and your phone. So you can check your emails or see who's, or the temperature. And it's like another device. You don't have to take your phone out of your pocket. Pretty innovative stuff. We just learned Apple, Samsung, everybody else is trying to do this as well. So this is an example of the crowd co-funding on their own, and I expect to see this emerge as enterprise software in the future. And companies can allow their own customers to co-fund new products, which is a huge commitment because it means you're vested for that product. The highest form of loyalty isn't word of mouth. The highest form of loyalty is co-ownership. Marketers have it wrong. The highest form of loyalty is co-ownership. One of those few things that I bought over the last 2 months, oh, by the way, one of the great things about not buying things is when you do get something new, it feels so freaking great. I mean, I'm going to tweet about it on Facebook. I have something new. It's just a great feeling. So I went to the Nike store, and I tried on the shoes, and I have some new Nikes, and these are called the Nike ID program, where you can design it. And I got them in all black, because sometimes I like to wear them in long meetings. And I want them to look just like business shoes. I'm not wearing them today. That would be cool if they looked like that, though. So I was able to design the exact look, size, and how much padding it had. So Nike is already enabling the crowd to design it. But what about co-developing? Quirky is a site that allows the crowd to submit ideas, and a small group builds it. So imagine in your company if the crowd could submit new features and requirements, and then you help them take it to market. How about Etsy? Has anybody seen Etsy? A lot of hands. This is a form of the crowd acting like a company. Local artisans are getting together and creating unique gifts. Williams-Sonoma, that huge retail brand, their West Elm group now sells these products in their local stores. We're already starting to see that happen. But what about producing and creating products? I went to Makers Faire, and I encourage all of you to try one of these. I think there's one in Chicago. And it's a giant conference and exhibition for people that make things, people that are acting like companies. And I saw the large hall of 3D printers. There's hundreds of 3D printers. And some of them are producing plastic, as you can see here. But what I saw next was mind-blowing. They're printing concrete, and this is wood. They're printing wood. They can print out tables. You can print out cars. You can print out all types of people. This is wood with cellulose in it, and it's using leftover sawdust from reclaimed items that are being chewed up. Now with the crowd who can have 3D printers in the next few years, you can activate them to build the products on demand in their places. But how do you get those products to locations? Another startup we're seeing is called Lockitron. And this is a hardware and software device that enables a trunk of a car, a closet, a desk to be opened with your mobile phone if you've been granted access. It means for companies, I know Cargill's here, 3M's here, it means you can forward deploy your goods and products into neighborhoods and offices, and people can grab them and access them whenever they want. It means the crowd is your storage and supply chain. But how do you get those products to those locations? Co-Deliv, it already exists. This is deliv.co, and they promise to deliver goods from the crowd, from retailers to people's houses or businesses in 1 hour. Google Shopping Express just emerged in San Francisco, and they're promising the same. The crowd is starting to become the company. In the startup world, it hasn't happened fully in the enterprise space. I want to give you one last example. I had the pleasure of going to the Aspen Institute last week, and one of the guys that was invited to the roundtable is Joe Justice out of Seattle. And he created a new company called WikiSpeed. And the goal of WikiSpeed is to create new products by using the crowd. And he did an open source architecture with some parameters, and the crowd designed car parts based upon a framework. Then the crowd printed the car pieces in their garages, and they mailed them over to Joe's garage, and then he assembles the car and builds the whole carbon fiber. This is the WikiSpeed prototype. There's 10 of them. I'm going to Seattle to drive it soon. This is an example of an entire car that has been assembled and built and designed and crowdfunded all by the crowd. It's starting to happen. The crowd is becoming a company. Now, the opportunity for us is to replicate all of these startups in our companies and try to make our own platforms so our customers can fund, ideate, produce, deliver, store, and be all of those business functions in our company. So here's some insights, some final takeaways. It means that companies who activate the crowd in this collaborative economy, you can reduce your operating expenses as the crowd does some of your work. It also means you get to tap into new ideas and generate new business value. Yeah, there's some risk involved, but this is why you want to set parameters. It also means that this is the most loyal group of customers you can ever have because they're with you. They are you. They have helped co-fund, develop, and they want to sell your products. Which leads to the next thing, that in this radical future, it means that we might not be able to tell the difference between an employee and a customer. Employees and customers might be the same thing. In this really radical future, it means that the most advanced companies might outsource all business functions to the crowd. And it might mean that the most advanced company, the only thing that's left, could be an e-commerce system and a logo. And that's called provide a platform. So in its entirety, we went around the collaborative economy value chain, and we went through all models. But I want to be honest about the challenges that will be coming if and when we decide to move forward. Opposing forces. We already see governments, lobbyists, and institutions oppose this. Tax revenues are being lost because people are sharing goods, but they don't have to buy them. We're already seeing the taxi drivers, this is true, spit or rip off the mustaches off the Lyft cars in San Francisco. That's already happening. Buyers and sellers, they don't have trust between each other because this is about activating strangers to share things in most cases. And by the way, that's the biggest opportunity for a brand who has a trusted logo and an existing set of customers. This is an opportunity for us. And 3, we see too many startups in each category. There's hundreds of them and more coming, and we don't know which ones are going to stand the test of time. It's a very early market. But why would we do this? And we'll start to summarize and close things down. 4 things why this makes sense to become a customer company and be part of the collaborative economy. You're more efficient as the crowd is helping. You have a long-term relationship with your customers. New value is created between your customers that we've never done before. And because this is brand new research, 6 weeks old, it means that the folks here in the room, you have the opportunity for first mover advantage. This report's only been viewed 60,000 times on SlideShare. It's a small group of the world. You have an opportunity to lead this today. To visualize the opportunity, companies are so affixed to trying to sell a product, sell it this season, sell it next season, sell. What I'm suggesting is to look bigger into the economy at all of these transactions that you can activate that you're not doing today. And instead of just trying to sell, grab new revenues. 20% is the average cut we see startups taking. They take 20% to 10% per transaction. But imagine if you could have access to all of these transactions and you take 20% from every single transaction happening in your marketplace. I'm telling Marriott to cut Airbnb out of the picture and take all of those revenues. I'm telling Toyota to get into the car sharing space and take all those revenues. So to close things off, this is just a summary. What happened to King Fred? I'm pleased to report that King Fred is revered as a hero, a king hero. Not only did he save his country from needless bloodshed, but he gave the power to the people. But perhaps more importantly to him, he kept his head. In fact, the Danish monarchy is the second oldest monarchy in the world. It still exists. And he's revered, and his family are revered as a trusted icon that establishes trust throughout the kingdom. And the people, the crowd, the community, the economy, they take care of them, and they work together in tandem. See, King Fred, he joined the collaborative economy because King Fred gave up his throne, but he gained the kingdom. And if you want to join the collaborative economy, it means that you as a corporation must let go of your company, but you'll gain the market. I leave you with one final question. What side of history will you be on? Thank you.
You got the clicker?
Yeah, that's right there.
Great. Hard to follow something that good. I'm between you and lunch, painfully aware of that. I want to close with a few very basic thoughts. I've already mentioned clearly the kind of enabling technology that makes these things possible has to be discussed through a lens that is not about cutting our costs of IT, but is about seizing opportunities in markets that don't even exist. And Jeremiah, you were just talking about the companies you've been urging to take a cut. I don't know if you saw the story that crossed the wire sometime in the last 36 hours. Enterprise has bought Lyft's legacy carpool matching business for an undisclosed amount, but it's a nice payoff. The transition you're talking about where the established brands say, we have to invest in this trend. Yeah, this is real. I've already made most of these points. We've got to stop wasting our time and talent managing unproductive software, understand that mobility is the norm, and move into this space aggressively, joyfully, heroically. We can't do this with the kind of IT that we've been using for so long. The model of I need to know what am I doing and share it with other people. I need to know who else is doing it in a way that makes it possible for me to discover people without hierarchy and without formal corporate relationships. I need to know what's already out there. I need to know what's the new stuff that I need to be proactive in sharing and how I can be contributing new information to that network. This is a screenshot off of my iPhone. This is how we roll with Chatter every day. I have a lot of account executives now come back from the field and say the customer doesn't want to see PowerPoints anymore. They just want me to show them how I do my work for 10 minutes. At the end of that, they say, yep, we want that. Being able to conduct polls and move on and take action. This is what people want to do. And the shocking thing is that what a lot of people think of as modern productivity tools is a 32-year-old idea. This desktop metaphor, it was kind of radical, but for heaven's sake, 32 years, really? 2 to the 5? I mean, that's a lot of powers of 2, especially since a third of US adults already own a tablet and they're not at a desk, so why do we want a desktop metaphor anymore? The generations of computing are really quite clear if you think about it. We had the machines where you flipped switches and controlled hardware directly. Some of us have touched front panels and thought about memory and thought about storage. And we said, no, we're going to move on to something better than that. We're going to have a command line where I can say, edit my file. You still had to decide what tool you were going to use and then what object you were going to use that tool to manipulate. Then we came up with this radical new idea of the desktop metaphor 32 years ago, where we said, oh, no, I'm going to tell the document, open yourself, and it's going to figure out what tool should be used to do that. Big step forward, but at the same time, if I'm trying to deal with a customer today, I might have a spreadsheet that represents a budget or an estimate. I might have a document that represents a contract. I might have a PowerPoint deck that represents a proposal. I might have an email thread that represents interaction with the customer and with my team and my partners. Where's the operating system that lets me say not open a file, but open a customer? Lets the customer be the object of interest. And we've got some conversations on record with people like the Obama for America campaign, who had to start the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company over a period of about 7 months, win an election, and then wind it all back down again. They did that pretty much 100% with cloud resources. They said we were working in an environment in which the person was essentially the native object of our computing environment. It's not unreasonable to ask, if you're going to build a customer platform, you should be using an IT platform on which customers are as obvious and native and concrete an object as a word processing document is on the 32-year-old model of computing that you have probably on your desktop or laptop right now. It is not a novel idea. It has already won a presidential election. It is already taking over entire marketplaces. And I promise you, we could not be doing what we do, growing 30, 40% year on year, if we didn't have this kind of facility. And our partners would not be doing what they're doing, which is growing 100% year on year, 400% year on year. Cloud practice is growing faster than the cloud because it's spreading geometrically out of being an IT conversation and becoming a conversation about the transformed nature of markets and the kind of organizations that will keep their heads in those markets. So it's been a great pleasure to be with you today, and I'd like Jeremiah to come back up. We're going to take a little time for Q&A, and then get on with lunch and the extraordinary program that Magnet 360's put together for you today. I want to thank our host, Magnet 360. It's been a fantastic event already. Thank you. And I hope that Jeremiah shares my request that, please, don't be delicate. If you think that we're blowing smoke and spreading fantasy, be rude to us, challenge us. We want to be confronted so we have a chance to substantiate what we're saying, because I think both of us come to you with a complete conviction that this is something that is not only possible but necessary. There are microphones out there, so please let's get a few questions out there before we split for lunch. Just in the back.
Hello, Fiona Quick. I'm with Ameriprise RiverSource. Just wondering how you predict the collaborative economy model translating to enterprise services, like financial services.
By enterprise services, you mean?
Like financial services
companies. Oh,
companies,
like financial services. Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, financial services,
There's already a collaborative economy startup that's disruptive to Ameriprise. It's called eToro out of Tel Aviv, and it's spreaded pretty far into Europe for a lower end of the market. And what it is a peer-to-peer trading community, a marketplace. And you can trade just like you would on any stocks. And then you see that these traders, they're not certified like many of your professionals. I'm a client, by the way. So they're not certified like your professionals. But when you start to see somebody in the top 1% make trades consistently over time, the rest of the community doubles down, triples down on that person's bet. So it's like at the roulette table, you see somebody's hot, you see more people happening.
Only better than that.
So how does that work on a compliance type situation with how does that work with compliance with things like the FCC? And
I did ask them about that, and they're just moving into the United States. So in the location, I had a briefing with them. So in the location that they're at, it's fine for what they're doing. They're able to get around that. But they're not giving financial advice. People are just watching what other people are doing and then doubling down. So I don't have enough information about the financial SEC market. I'm just sharing with you that I am absolutely seeing this happening in all markets.
And when you think about it, a lot of regulation and compliance stuff is a scaffolding erected to protect people from lack of transparency. And the more you have real-time information on what someone's actual behavior and success have been, the more you're able to make an informed choice about whether to bet on them instead of requiring the artificial structures that we've grown up over the years. And it's important to re-ask yourself the question, well, why does this compliance framework exist, and is its mission now being achieved by other means? Mm-hmm. Is there a follow-up?
You were talking about how companies could then, if this is the startup,
yes.
How would the company,
under
the auspices of the SEC and the compliance rules, take that model?
So within the compliance rules, I'm not clear how that could, I don't know enough to answer that. But in the models I showed, this would be a motivate a marketplace example, where you could create your own marketplace of people that are trading and buying, customers like me, not FPs, financial professionals and advisors, that when they start having successes, and maybe they're doing that on their own, then you enable peer-to-peer investments or people to double down on them. Okay. Motivate a marketplace. That's the business goal for that particular use case.
Great question. Thank you. We have another one over here, please.
Yes. As we talk about the social economy and now into this collaborative situation, with the desire or the need to listen more to the consumer. That means more consumers are talking to you. That means more people need to listen, and the companies need to listen more. The problem has always been scale.
Yes.
How does it scale for a company to all of a sudden be not only listening but collaborating back and forth with, I don't know how many times we've talked to businesses that say, well, I just don't have a budget to really do social media right. They'll sort of paste it together. And when you're talking about a collaborative opportunity, there's more risk at, having the reverse of all of a sudden you're feeling like you're not listened to as a customer.
There are at least two technical approaches to this which are probably going to be needed simultaneously. One is the sheer volume of unstructured data, which things like our own Radiant 6 Insights offering attempt to help you get a handle on and quickly identify meaningful, unambiguous sentiment indicators from just the mass of data. And then the other discipline that's relevant here is network theory, where you quickly figure out who are the key nodes in a network, and if you can monitor a relatively small fraction of the network and accurately predict that if these 10 people are saying this, then you're going to have to deal with it as a trend. So these are two different ways, and obviously this is where we're investing heavily ourselves in the offering that used to be called Radiant 6 and is now a piece of our marketing cloud proposition. Jeremiah, you probably have your own thoughts about how people can...
Well, that was definitely going to be the first part of my answer, is automating a lot of this.
Yeah, scalability requires automation.
The second one is, and I still think listening is very key, very important, but the second one is look where they put their money. So imagine if a company used an ideation tool or even their own version of Kickstarter. By the way, there's an open source version out there that already exists on the Lockitron site. Imagine if you focused on the companies that said, I'm going to pre-invest in $100 for this new product to be installed or created by you. So that might be another form of listening, is where do they put their money in the future.
Doesn't the concept of the collaborative mean more talking as well? Not just listening, but more talking?
It does, and I didn't go into depth because the market isn't ready for the tactics, and I don't know all the answers yet, but we see that the role of the community advocate or the orchestrator or somebody who acts like a liaison, and these are typically called community managers, they're going to have a more important role to work with the customer advocates that will be out there. And so that role will only increase in importance.
And your ability to do that well is really going to be your source of value. There's an XKCD comic that some of you may have seen where a guy's working on a whiteboard and saying, well, we outsourced the design process to the current leading experts and put people together through proven social networks so that interested buyers and sellers can find each other. And the caption is, no one caught on that our business plan didn't actually involve us in any way. The question is, what's your value add going to be? Are you going to be a Steve Jobs visionary who helps steer people toward where the puck's going to be, in the Wayne Gretzky metaphor, who recognizes a need before anyone else does? I tell people real-time's way too timid a goal. You need to be proactively identifying needs before your customers have even articulated them. And if you can do that well, you will have a value to contribute. Otherwise, you'll just be an arms dealer to the people who do have value to offer.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Jeremiah, I'm sorry that you didn't know everything. I'm really disappointed.
We can probably take one more, and then we should get on only half an hour, beyond our planned timeline for the day. Is there anything else? That usually shuts the room up in a hurry when we say a last question. Yes, sir.
So my curiosity is how this backlashes on the consumer a little bit. My nephew works at one of the big box retailers in town, and he deals with these customers every day that are irrational. Customer is God, wants things they shouldn't, and if they don't get it, they're like, I'm going to tweet this and I'm going to Facebook this. He even went to the point where she said, I'm never going to come here again, and he said, great. He got out his camera, took her picture with him, and said, I'll put on chatter for our store that if you ever come in, we won't do business with you because we don't want your kind of customer activity to happen in our store.
One of my little...
Which I thought was... astonishing that he would be able to actually talk like that to someone that
One
was
of my little heresies is that the most valuable thing a CRM system can do is help you figure out which of your customers are costing you money to have. The expression "fire your customer" I think is an important one, and I think it is important to say, if I have an open dialogue and say, if I can't add value for you, then we shouldn't waste each other's time. Jeremiah, how do you feel about that question?
Reputation systems exist right now mainly for the benefit of the consumer, but we'll expect to see them for the benefit of corporations. where we can see the reputation of how well somebody is a customer. Because if you got the model in the collaborative economy, everybody is a business, right? You saw that happening. Everybody's acting like a company, and it means that they will have reputations as well.
And if you look at a company like Trunk Club, which represents minuscule volume, but I'm convinced that the people they're taking out of the men's apparel market are the ones that Nordstrom and Saks and others are actually making money on. Maybe they have got 3% market share, but maybe they've got 30% of the profit share in a market. If you aren't prepared as any business to abandon the idea that the customer is always right and that having more customers is always better, everyone's always known those two things were true. Well, in this marketplace, I don't think those things are true. And I think the privilege of being someone's customer is something you're going to have to negotiate for, just as they're trying to negotiate for the privilege of being your provider.
I think that's great.
Speaking of providers and customers, I think we better eat. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Peter and Jeremiah, and all of our other speakers. Can we give them one last round of applause?
Great stuff. Thank you.